Hey everyone, it's RobbRyder, and it's February 16th, 2021. Hey, welcome, Gab. I'm RobbRyder, and for those who aren't on Gab, right, I just recently joined, and I am RobbRyder on Gab, RobbRyder. And so, if you've come from Gab and never seen my videos before, I do quite a few of these. I'm glad that you're here, because what I want to find out today is, will the sheriff serve the sovereign? And this is a continuation of a series of videos I've done where I've been, in my own mind, focusing on the fact that um, in the United States, there's supposed to be four levels of republic according to Thomas Jefferson. There was the national, the state, the county, and the local, right? And they called it the elemental republic, which is supposed to be a township. And townships are really the original jurisdiction of the United States. When they started the Northwest Ordinance and all the land west of the Appalachians to the Mississippi, and it was all grid surveyed by the Public Land Survey, and then they gave it names. So really, the township is older than the state, it's older than the city, it's older than the county. It's the original jurisdiction. Well, that should be our local government. So like in Michigan, there's like 1,200 of these, or there's over 1,200, and it should be our local government, but it's not being used that way. And so, I want to show you what I'm trying to do about it, and what it came down to here recently is, well, I'm going to take what I know, and I'm going to go tell the sheriff. Because the sheriff is, like the governor of the county, and have them coerce the township to do what needs to be done so that I would be what's called a registered and qualified elector of the township, right? Which basically means you're registered with the municipality to vote for municipality issues, right? Municipality elections. And so as an example, the township I live in, if you look at the ordinance code, it's called Township of Oakfield, Kent County, Michigan, right? But when they have their monthly meeting, it's called the Oakfield Township Board of Trustees. It's not called the Township Board of the Township of Oakfield, right? So it's not the right meeting. And if you're not new to this, if this is new to you, this is what they do all the time, right? They are wordsmiths, smoke and mirrors. They'll take County of Kent and call it that here, and over here they'll call it Kent County. Right? So which one are we talking about? County of Kent or Kent County? Is it Township of Oakfield, or is it Oakfield Township? Is it state of Michigan or just Michigan? Or is it the state of Michigan? Right? So this is the thing that we deal with. And so I have recently put together something, and I sent it today to the sheriff in Kent County, which I'm going to read shortly. But I decided that I wanted to do a video at the same time where I could read it myself and explain to you what it means to me, in case you've never heard these things before, and show you where the information comes from. And now that you've been better informed, hopefully you'll share it with other people. Because, well, for instance, here on Gab, right, here's Andrew Torba, the founder of Gab. He's saying, we need 100,000 Donald Trumps leading every town, legislature, state government, and the county. Or in the country. Yeah, that sounds better. I agree, right? So, but the problem is the way they're set up now, none of these entities have any power, because the people sitting in the office haven't taken the proper oaths of office. Right? They didn't do step one right. And if you don't do step one right, you don't get to do step two. Now, they still act every day like they have this authority, but they don't. They're usurping authority as a de facto instead of a de jure government. And this is all, orchestrated by the state bar, Michigan, is it the state bar of Michigan, we'll call it, right? And all the esquires, the attorneys at law that are part of that private society. What they've done is they've shut down the local government, and they've created a parallel foreign jurisdiction of a private society, which, you can do. I mean, it's in, that's called the right of free association. The Methodist Church did it. Right? I mean, I did videos on this back in the day. So all this is things that could be done, but you can't be coerced to be in it. And if you want to leave, you have to be able to. Right? It's almost like we're stuck in a cult. And so if you go to court and you see a black robe priest and you think that's a state judge, I'm telling you that's not a state judge. It's not a federal judge. That's fucking Judge Judy. Right? It's Judge Wapner. You walked into a private court and you're going to agree to the jurisdiction because you're going to argue the facts because you don't know any better. Right? Instead of saying, well, Judge, did you take the oath of office that you need to have to, adjudicate a matter that involves the life, liberty, or property of a citizen of the United States? If not, you don't have any authority. And so this is the idea, right? Okay, yeah, let's get 100,000 people, but you don't even need to be in office to make this work. What you need to do is get your local government straightened out first, because that's where we're supposed to go do our governmental business. And I'm saying the way that get that done is by using the sheriff. Right? So, will the sheriff serve the sovereign? Now, in the United States, the sovereign is the Constitution of the United States. Right? If you hear about, them say constitutional sheriff and so forth, and whatever. It's all good. But what I want to know is if I bring to the sheriff evidence that somebody has violated the 6th article of the Constitution and taken an improper oath, will he do something about it? Or in my case, she. We have the first female sheriff in Michigan is in Kent County. So there you go. And she was a captain in the Army. Good on you, ma'am. Let's see if we can make all this come together now. So that's what's going on. And again, if you're from Gab and you've not seen my videos before, just real quick, I do a lot of videos on a lot of interesting stuff that, in this line of thinking. And if this opens up here real quick, I got too many windows open, unfortunately. Right, so if you go to RobbRyder with 3 B's on YouTube, RobbRyder, I made a mistake way back in the day. I had no idea I'd be doing this for this long, and I'm still doing it. So you had to put up with that, right? And but you can search by upload date. And I haven't been bothered because, I don't take any money for doing this stuff. And so I haven't signed any contracts with them. And, I put it on all sorts of things that you would think that they would pull you off of YouTube for. But I had done one just here recently about Trump towns, where if you go back it was in the middle of January 25th, I think it was. Maxine Waters, she was, her worst nightmare is that we re-inhabit the small towns and the cities. Right? Because that's where all the authority is. The way they have it set up now, see, they've closed down your local government, which should be the township hall. That should be where you go to do anything to do with the government, face to face with the government. If you needed to be called to a court, the summons should come to you through the township. They should have a constable of the township deliver it to you. Well, all of that has been shut down now, it seems like. Right? And when you look closely, you say, well, these people aren't taking the proper oath of office, and they have errors and omissions in all their records and so forth. And, well, how can that be? And there's a township attorney sitting there, so he's allowing all this to happen. So apparently they have something to do with it. And these townships are all part of a municipal association, and so is your county. And, they have these municipal associations that are run by attorneys. And you keep having people being voted in and out, and pretty soon it's not hard to take what should have been done by law and start doing it by a custom, and the custom is just enough wrong that it puts an error or an omission in a record that affects your life, liberty, or property without you knowing it. So, hey, I don't know how far to tell you go back. It's just how much you want to watch, right? But if you're really interested, go back a year. It's probably 35 videos, and none of these are short. So, but like wanted township officers for Trump, right? From there forward, you get a really good idea about the stuff I'm talking about. And then just here in these last few, we're defund the deep state, pay your taxes, counterfeit property tax, classification assessment. I'm showing, the records, the documents that prove that real property tax isn't really being charged to you by the state. It's just somebody pretending they're charging you real property tax. And they're simulating a legal process, and they're using counterfeited documents and so forth. But, it's not the state that's charging you for a tax. And in fact, you don't owe any tax because you have interest in land that the state or the United States is holding the title to. And interest is personal property. It's not real property, and therefore there's no real property tax to pay. And as I showed, and I'll show it here in just a minute, when you start looking at all the documents, you just see all these errors in them. And so if I have one expertise and all the things I've done is I've become really good at finding errors or omissions in documents that they create that they say are supposed to have some effect on me. So I want to see, understand what's on the paper. And the easiest thing to understand is, well, what's not there, right? And if it is there, well, why does it say what it says? Why do they have my name backwards? Why do they say Rytlewski, Robert A. if my name's Robert Allen Rytlewski? They want me to be Rytlewski, Robert A., but that's not my name. Okay, so that's enough of that introduction. I'm going to get started here in just a second, so let me put things in order, and I'll be right back. I just want to take a minute to look at something in the commentaries, The Laws of England by William Blackstone. And, if you're new to this, again, this is like the book that all the original founding fathers would have used as their basis of understanding the English common law, which is what the United States is based on, right? Everybody read Blackstone's. It was, they had the Bible and they had Blackstone's. And in Blackstone's, it says that the sheriff is an office of very great antiquity in this kingdom, his name being derived from two Saxon words, shire, reeve, da-da-da-da. And if you listen to, a commentary on sheriffs today, they'll say that that's what they're talking about. Yeah, sheriffs have been around since the 9th century. So they're talking about sheriff in the way that Blackstone talks about sheriff. He is a Latin vice-com, as to be deputy of the earl, to whom the custody of the shire is said to have been committed at the first division of the kingdom and the counties. We don't need to know that. What is the part I wanted to show you? It's a relatively long, read on the sheriff, so I suggest you download the book, right? It's Blackstone's Commentaries on English Law. So it says, as keeper of the king's peace, both by common law and special commission, he is the first man in the county and superior in rank to any nobleman therein during his office. He may apprehend and commit to prison all persons who break the peace or attempt to break it, and may bind anyone in recognizance to keep the king's peace. He may, and is bound ex officio, I mean officially, to pursue and take all traitors, murderers, felons, and other misdoers, and commit them to jail for safe custody. He is also to defend his county against any of the king's enemies, and our king is the Constitution of the United States, by the way, when they come into the land. And for this purpose, as well as for keeping the peace and pursuing felons, he may command all people of his county to attend him, which is called a posse comitatus, or power of the county. He, together with the constable, coroner, and certain other officers of the king, are forbidden to hold any pleas of the crown, or in other words, to try any criminal offenses. Okay, so he can't try them. See, the sheriff has a court, right? So he can't try them in his court, but he can be the conservator of the peace in his county, which is really all we need him to do, because basically, if you can't use your township the way it's meant to be used, then it's a violation of due process of law. And that's just as easy as me saying, well, the people down there are disturbing the king's peace because the king said I'm supposed to be able to do this, and they're not letting me do it, right? The Constitution says, that I'm cannot be denied due process, and there's a process to be made an inhabitant of the body corporate of a township but they won't do it down at the township. So, sheriff, come on down and make them do it. That's all you need to do. You don't need to. Nobody needs to be arrested. Just make it do what they need to do. That's what I'm hoping for. All right, so back to what I started with. Hang on here. All righty. So I spent the last couple days putting all this together in my head and putting it on paper. And right, what did I wanted to say that summarized all the things that I've talked about here recently, and things that are true, right? So I'm going to put it all on paper, send it to the sheriff, give the sheriff some evidence, and see what the sheriff will do. And because, we have email now, I sent it by email. I just sent it today, and, I know that, no, they didn't call me today, and I don't know that they'll call me tomorrow, but, it didn't bounce back to me, so somebody got it. And if I haven't heard something in a couple days, well, I'll put second notice and send it again. But in the meantime, this is what I had to say, right? So, I've done all this stuff about me. So my report, impersonation of public officers in Kent County, Michigan, and elsewhere is causing the denial of constitutional due process protection and of the Republican form of government guaranteed the states. By the way, this is like 4 pages long, so it might take me a little bit of time if you want to stop now and get yourself something to drink. And I'll continue on, right? We'll just slowly go through this, and I'm going to stop every once in a while and go show you a document where it says what I'm talking about, so that when we're all done, you can have a basic understanding. And if you want to know more about where all this came from, well, you have to go back and start watching videos from the last year, because in the last year I've been concentrating on these types of issues. So, but really, you don't have to, right? You can just wait. I'll do another video if any of this works. And at the end of the day, what you need to know is what works. If you have faith and go do it and it works, well, then that's all you really needed to know. You don't need to bother yourself with all this other shit. That was my job, right? I'm trying to finish my job. So here we go. Sheriff, in your Army captain hat. She was a captain, by the way. I am sure you are aware that enlistees are not released from the custody and control of the military. I am still in the Army, as bound by oath of enlistment today, as the day I enlisted. Now, if you're a veteran and didn't know that, you're still in the military, and the proof of that is that you don't have a discharge order. You may have a DD-214, but you don't have a discharge order. So, and your DD-214, if it's like mine, it's got so many errors and omissions in it, it's just a form that says DD-214 on it, but it certainly isn't a DD-214 by the regulation. But it's really hard to find somebody to do something about that. But that's all part of this overall problem, right? That our whole system has been shut down so that we don't have any relief because they put us in this fictitious system. So I'll get into that in the letter. Let's move on. So as bound by oath of enlistment today is the day I was enlisted. Therefore, in my official non-commissioned officer hat, I report the violation of the Constitution of the United States by persons impersonating public officers and the devastating effect this man-made disaster is causing on the lives of the inhabitants living in the townships within the territory you claim jurisdiction. Probably should have put over there. Claim jurisdiction over. Claim jurisdiction in. What's the proper last word there? I'm not a grammar expert, as you'll find out. Township inhabitants are denied due process of law, Republican form of government, registration as a qualified elector of the township, a confirmed residence address, franchise public utilities, just to name a few issues. We are subject to the extortion of our wealth by persons impersonating public officers or officials, conspiring with esquires who simulate legal process in private tribunals masquerading as constitutional courts that use counterfeited Michigan Department of Treasury local government official forms, State of Michigan uniform law citations, that would be a traffic ticket, oaths of office, and state court administrator approved civil, misdemeanor, and felony court forms as props in a criminal scheme that has disfranchised township inhabitants of all constitutional protections and liberties They have even counterfeited the state's Great Seal. And that's the truth. I'll show you in just a second. Yeah, make sure I turn this thing back on. Jeepers. Okay, so as no township officer has executed valid oaths of office, we are effectively enslaved by belligerents of a private societies who impersonate constitutionally empowered public officers and deny people establishing a domicile in a municipality recognition as a member of the township's body corporate and the protection of Republican form of government guaranteed to the states under the 4th Article of the Constitution of the United States. We need sheriffs to enforce the Constitution of the United States in the organized townships located within their jurisdiction. By common law, the sheriff represents the sovereign within his or her territorial jurisdiction. Our sovereign is the Constitution of the United States, and its articles are being offended in Kent County, Michigan, United States, and every other county in the United States by esquires and public officer impostors. Let me briefly explain where you can find proof of my claims. Oath to satisfy, 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States. The very first law passed after the ratification of the Constitution of the United States, an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths, 1 Stat 23. Right, so that's the law, an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths. Right, now it's in the first book of the statutes at large on page 23. That's why it's called 1 Stat 23. Very first law passed. And it says in the first section, being enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the form following, to wit, I, Robert Allen Wertlewski, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Period. All right, so let's stop there for a second. All right, that's the oath that satisfies the 6th Article of the Constitution. Now, when you go look at the 6th Article, it'll say, well, here's the people that need to take it. Right, but what that looks like when you go look in the law book, then it's the laws of the United States, acts of the First Congress of the United States, where George Washington is president, John Adams the vice president, and president of the Senate, and Frederick Augustus Muhlenberg, Speaker of the House of Representatives, got together. That's all they got together, and they passed this law. And it said, being enacted, right, this is the section we just read, right, so there you go. And then the rest of it is, well, what do you do after you take the oath? And part of it is that such officers shall incur the same penalties in case of failure as shall be imposed by law in case of failure in taking their respective oath of office. So if you don't take this oath, it's the same as not taking the one for your respective oath of office for your office. Apparently you have to take more than one oath. Go figure. Now, in King Henry VIII's time, if you didn't take his oath, it was called treason, and he would have you executed. So it's an act of treason to fail to take an oath of office. Now, it goes on to say that there's these other oaths that are supposed to be for the clerk of the House and the Senate. And it would be interesting to see if this is the oath they're taking or not. I've never actually checked it, but, there you go. That's the law. What can I tell you? There's no need arguing about it. It's the law of the United States, right? This oath in the statutes at large at 1 Stat 23 has been codified in the United States Code as for USC, for United States Code, Section 101, oath by members of legislature and officers, where it says that every member of a state legislature and every executive and judicial officer of a state shall, before he proceeds to execute the duties of his office, take an oath in the following form. And it's the same oath, right? And so, that's what that looks like. This is right out of the government printing office, right? The GPO. And because it has the little eagle on it, it says authenticated U.S. government information. That's like saying this is a certified copy of what the law is today. Now, the problem with that is as soon as you print this out, it loses that distinction. So if you wanted to have this printed out and have it be foolproof evidence for some use, you would have to print it out at the library or have it printed out by the library themselves and tell them to put their library seal on it. Tell them you want to use it in a court case. Because if you just print it out and give it to them, that's hearsay evidence. But if they certify that it's a public record, well, then that's foolproof evidence. It doesn't take anything else to prove it is what it is. Actually, it's called self-authenticating evidence under the Federal Rules of Evidence, Rule 902. Anyways, in Section 101, it says, there it is, right? The same thing. So you can't deny it says that, the state legislature and every executive and judicial officer of the state shall take this oath. So now you're in court for foreclosure. There's a guy sitting out there says he's the judge. Did he take this oath or not? If he didn't, he's not a state judge, so why are you there, adjudicating this in front of him? You just went to Wapner's court. Now, you really can't blame the judge, although we're going to, in a way. But, you can't blame the judge at that particular moment because the judge didn't bring you to his court. The opposing party did, which is some esquire, right, attorney at law, that, brought you to a judge, brought this case to a judge who doesn't have the authority to hear it. That is a malicious prosecution. Right? It's a simulated legal process under color of law. It's a fucking crime. It's really that simple. He's learned in the law. He's supposed to know better. Especially if they're the prosecutor. But the prosecutors do this too, right? They do this for criminal and civil. They do it at the state. They do it at the federal. It's all the same. None of these people pretending to be a judge has taken this oath. Now, this one here is specifically written, so the state officers, but it's the same as this oath right here. Right? And so all we need to do is, this is the one that satisfies the 6th article, so let's go look at the 6th article and see who's in the 6th article needs to take the oath of office. And we'll be there soon enough. Okay, let's continue on. So sheriff, 4 U.S.C. 101 is a law of the United States, and its oath, is superior to any other oath required by the state. Right? This is above any other oath they have to take. This oath with those words by themselves has to be taken just the way you see it. Right? I, Robert Albert Lusky, do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States. This one doesn't even let you affirm it. You have to say solemnly swore that I will support the Constitution of the United States, or you cannot be a freaking executive, judicial, or state legislative officer of the state. Now, those, judicial and executive offices, they go all the way down to the township, right? That includes the mayor, includes anybody who's claiming to be a public officer in the state. And none of them have taken it. Okay, so yet, not the governor or the state attorney general or the state secretary of state or any alleged Michigan justice or judge, county commissioner, county clerk, drain commissioner, county treasurer, township supervisor, or board member of any other person claiming authority under the Constitution has executed this oath. We do not have a constitutional government. Instead, we have usurpers acting as tyrants, impersonating public officers and officials. Call it what it is. Even the oath filed, if filed, that allegedly satisfies the Michigan Constitution of 1963 is a counterfeit. It contains grammatical style changes, is subscribed using fictitious names instead of the legal identification, like on a state ID, and in the case of the governor, an unauthorized person administered the oath. This is more easily understood by providing an example, so I have attached various complaint petitions I have filed pertaining to Gretchen Esther Whitmer's, supposed to be the governor of Michigan's, usurpation and treason. Residence address requires street and number. I have never found a legal definition of residence address, yet Michigan residents are required to provide one when they apply for state identification. According to the Michigan Election Commission, the clerk of the local election district is to maintain addresses in their election jurisdiction, but as of yet, this vital information remains concealed. I have asked the state, county, township, road commissioners, county school board, postmaster to provide my residence address, and none has done so. Take notice, the residence address required on a state identification consists of street and number. See State Form ED 109W. So, what is my street and what is my number for the lot of land I reside on? Why street before number? What number? What street? M57, 14-mile road, or spelled out 14-mile road? Right? Because if, they're looking for a particular address, then I want to give them the particular address. But no one will tell me what it is. I've seen I got a mailing address, I got a parcel address or a property address, I have a situs address, I got a physical address, right? All these kinds of addresses, but they specifically make you give them a residence address, and they won't tell you what it is. So going on then, the Township of Oakfield Ordinance Code makes it a civil infraction if I provide a false address to a police officer. Yet the township will not tell me what my residence address is. The government has a duty to provide me a residence address, and not doing so denies me due process of law. That's enough reason right there to contact the sheriff, because they won't tell me what my fucking address is. Sheriff, I am in expectation of your assistance in obtaining an acknowledged Michigan residence address. Okay, so hang on just a second. I want to show a couple things that go with that. All right, so here's the form ED-109W, which calls itself Michigan Change of Address / Voters Registration. And see, there's residence address, must be included. And it says street and number. Okay, well, I would say my address is 10955 14-mile road. Does that mean I put 14-mile road, 10955? Or do I put my street address and then some other number, like a lot number, which, as it turns out, it looks like it's supposed to be. But I don't even know if my street address is quite proper. So, hey, you guys just tell me what it is, right? I want the township. What do I need to put in that blank? So I have a residence address in the Township of Oakfield. It really isn't that hard a question, but they don't seem to be able to answer it. Then it says mailing address if different. And now look, this is still the same, street and number, but they want a P.O. box. Or a RR and box number. Well, who's supposed to give me that? So this doesn't even have to be the address I would use to have mail sent to my mailbox. This is like your official address and your official mailing address, right? For things that are official, doing with the government. But not necessarily what you have, people send mail to your mailbox for. So there you go. I mean, this is, right? It says street and number. And so it's not just here. When President Trump filled out his paperwork, right, for his declaration of domicile, right, where he put his name wrong, unfortunately put Donald J. Trump. It has to be Donald John Trump, sir. That's who you are. You're not Donald J. Trump. It's not on your driver's license. Look here. It says street and number. Same as mine. And then he went on to say Palm Beach, County, Florida. But actually, it's the proper name of this town is called Town of Palm Beach, right? The Town of Palm Beach is the thing that has a charter, and it has the municipal code. There is no such thing as Palm Beach. So it's the same with me. The thing that has the power is called the Township of Oakfield. But they want me to call it Oakfield Township, right? They switch it around. And it is, it's in Palm Beach County, which is proper. That's what they're asking you for. But it should have said Town of Palm Beach, City and County, and street and number. Well, what is the street and what's the number? Should it be South Ocean Boulevard, 1100, or should it be 1100 South Ocean Boulevard, and then some other number like lot number, whatever? Well, somebody else has to tell us because we don't know. Right, that's the thing. If you put the wrong one down, then you just put yourself in the wrong jurisdiction, which is what they wanted us to do in the first place. So we end up putting an improper address here. We put ourselves in their private jurisdiction. And it looks like we volunteered because that's what we put on the paperwork. Well, if they won't tell me what it is, that's, denial of due process then. And, again, so I'm calling the sheriff. All right, hang on here. And then here's the Township of Oakfield Ordinance Code. And going to spend much time. I just want to show you a couple things real quick that just to pay attention because I won't come back to it later. It says Chapter 18, Great Lakes Energy Cooperative has the electric franchise in my township. And in Michigan, this is determined by the Constitution that, public utilities have to have a franchise in the township. Well, then why is my bill from Consumers Energy if, I'm supposed to be doing business with Great Lakes Energy? They don't want to answer that question either. So this code contains all ordinances for the Township of Oakfield, right? It's not Oakfield Township. What did I want to show you? Okay, so the Township Supervisor is authorized to issue citations for any violation of any Township ordinance. Well, they have one, like disturbing the peace. So if somebody is sending you mail to your house that, like a simulated legal process, that's disturbing your peace. You should be able to take it down to the township and say, look, they keep sending me this bill, but it doesn't have my name on it. Right? I need you to do something. And then the township is supposed to act as your agent and attorney and sue and be sued in its name for you because you're a member of the body corporate. And they can issue appearance tickets, right? They can call people in to come answer before the board, right? It's called a subpoena. What did I want to show, though? Okay, so this is the police regulations, right? And it says right here, knowingly furnish any police officer or other officer a false name, false address, or false information in connection with any arrest or investigation. Well, that's pretty freaking open-ended, isn't it? Right? They talk to you and you give them your ID card and it's got the wrong address on. Well, you just gave them false information, right? So check a box. That's all it took. You're disturbing the peace. Knowingly make to any police officer a false report for the purported commission of a crime. Well, there you are. I'm purporting there's been a commission of a crime. So either you're going to have to arrest my ass or prosecute the fucking crime. Excuse my French. I'm sorry with the F word. It just happens sometimes. I get a little bit carried away. So please forgive me. All right, hang on a second again. So that's why I want the sheriff to, assist me in obtaining my Michigan residence address. Okay, simulation of a legal process using counterfeit official forms. Alleged justices and judges of Michigan are offending federal law 4 U.S.C. 101 by omitting to execute its oath. We've already looked at it. It applies to judges, justices, the governor, attorney general, township commissioner, or township supervisor, township board, right? The county clerk, all of them. If they're claiming an office, because all those are people whose offices are on the Michigan Constitution, they have to have taken the oath in 4 U.S.C. 101 also, and it's superior to their other oaths. They didn't take it. Now, how do I know that? Well, because I've asked for the oaths. I said, I wrote to did a Freedom of Information Request Act for the governor. I said, please send me the governor's oaths. They sent me one. Right? And it wasn't this oath. It wasn't 4 U.S.C. 101. But it was one that counterfeited the state's constitutional oath, which we're going to get into in just a second. So, alleged judges and justices of Michigan are offending federal law 4 U.S.C. 101 by omitting to execute its oath, and they counterfeited the state's constitutional oath of office. They have no constitutional authority to deprive a citizen of the United States of their life, liberty, or property, yet they do so anyways, with the aid of State Bar of Michigan co-members who knowingly prosecute citizens of the United States and members of the armed forces of the United States before tribunals whose members omitted filing the oath mandated by the United States and who counterfeited the oath required by the state constitution. There's got to be something criminal about that, don't you think? And this is the proper term, citizen of the United States. This is what you are. Right? If you want to be protected by the Constitution, you are a citizen of the United States. You're not a U.S. citizen, U.S. citizen. And you're not a United States citizen. You are a lowercase citizen of the United States if you want to be protected by the Constitution, because that's how it's used in the Constitution. The only time the word citizen is used in the Constitution is either by itself or as citizen of the United States, just as you see it right here. Right? Because a lot of people, they don't want to be a citizen of the United States, or they say they don't want to be a U.S. citizen, which I agree. You don't. You want to be a citizen of the United States. You just got to get used to it. That's what you are. Okay, so these imposters use counterfeited state forms as props, simulate legal process, conceal their true identity, the identity of the plaintiff and of the defendant, in an unjust legal system that omits information, conceals evidence, and ultimately adversely affects the life, liberty, and property of all citizens of the United States. Because when they throw one person in jail, that just screwed up a whole family. If you've never had to deal with this before, in a day, your whole life has changed because they just put somebody in jail for some bullshit thing that, they shouldn't even have been bothered about. Because they run it as a business. See, this isn't the government doing it. It's a business. They're going to write some bonds, get you in there and write bonds against your name. It's a business. So, under the Michigan Penal Code, they're in violation of Section 217C, which would be MCL 75217C, which says, in the first section, right, a person shall not impersonate, falsely represent himself or herself as, or falsely act as, a public officer or public employee, and prepare, issue, serve, execute, or otherwise act to further the operation of any legal process or unauthorized process that affects or purports to affect persons or property. And so this would be a good time to look at a couple of definitions since I have it opened up. So let's look at it again. Alrighty, so, this is the code. This is the Penal Code of Michigan. Here's the section I was just reading. But if you went down here a little bit further, we could see, they define what legal process is. Summons, complaint, pleading, writ, warrant, injunction, notice, subpoena, lien, order, other document issued or entered by or on behalf of a court or lawful tribunal or lawfully filed with a recorder by a government agency that is used by means of exercise or acquiring jurisdiction over a person or property, right? So somebody's going to use this to affect your life, liberty, or property. Well, then it had better be by due process. But public employee, what does that mean? Right? Means an employee of this state, an employee of the city, village, county of the state, or an employee of a department, board, agency, institution, Well, what's a public officer? It means a person who is elected or appointed to any of the following. An office established by the state Constitution 1963. A public office of a city, village, township, county, or state, or in the state. A department, board, agency, institution, commission, court, authority, division, council, college, university, school district, intermediate school district, special district, other public entity of the state or city, village, township, or the county in the state. In other words, all those different things are considered public officers, and they all had to take the oath that's in 4 USC 101 and the oath that's in the Constitution of Michigan of 1963. But they ain't doing it. They omit one and counterfeit the other. And that's what I'm here to prove. Okay, hang on. I want to read something real quick. Okay, so sheriff. Anywhere there's an esquire involved in government, it is as a usurper committing treason. It's just the way it is. You can't get over it. They can't help themselves. Right? It comes with the class of officer they are. Attorneys were woed in the Bible by Jesus multiple times. There's a reason for it. He's talking about these people. Right? These are classes of people. Like a Nicolaitan. Right? A Nicolaitan is somebody who wants to lord over you. So that's a politician. Right? The Jewish tax collector, well, that's as it turns out, that's the assessor down at the township who's having you pay taxes on shit that you don't owe taxes on. Right? So all these people have worked themselves into the class of person they were meant to be in the Bible, and we're just dealing with them. Right? So we need to rule them with a rod of iron. The sheriff, anywhere there's esquire involved in government, it's a usurper committing treason. That includes the individuals impersonating the Michigan governor, attorney general, and secretary of state. Their impersonation evidences that Michigan is denied a Republican form of state government. Right? It's guaranteed by the 4th Article of the Constitution. The state is guaranteed a Republican form of government. Well, we have usurpers in office and we don't have a Republican form of government. Constitution's been violated. It's time for the sheriff to do something. Okay, how about this now? This is, for anybody who owns a house or thinks you owns a house, this applies to you, whether you're late on taxes or not, because as I'm going to show you, right, that real property tax is just a scheme. So, by state law, homeowners do not owe real property tax. It is a fact that the state or United States holds legal title to the land, not the homeowner. Michigan personal property tax law states that interest in real property that the state or United States holds title to is to be taxed as personal property, not real property. So if it can't be taxed as real property, then how is it you end up, being foreclosed on for real property taxes? That was the question, right? And that's what these last number of videos had to do with that I had done. If I kept that open, no, I did. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I covered this topic really good here in from classification, assessment tax, defund the deep state, pay your taxes, counterfeiting property. And these 3 or 4 videos right here, stop paying residential real property tax. Obviously, I went into a lot more detail than I can right now on this section that I'm reading from, but it has to do with this situation, right? That you're paying, I don't own property, so I can't do this, but you who believe you own a house are paying real property tax on something that you really only have interest in. You don't have title, right? And when you read the property tax law in Michigan, it says, well, that's real or personal property. It's not real property. If it's not real property, well, then how could you be foreclosed on for real property tax, which is the thing they're foreclosing on people on. So let's continue on a little bit. So real property taxes and tax foreclosures are simulated legal process that relies on counterfeit Michigan Department of Treasury local government official forms. So if you went to the Michigan Department of Government Treasury website, you see all these forms, and they're official forms. It's like, well, you can't change that form, and you have to use it. It's an official form. Well, they either don't use it or they change it. Right? And that's in those videos. I showed, examples of exactly what they're doing. It's like, well, it's as blatant as can be. That's counterfeiting a form. Warranty deeds with intentional scrivener errors, right? The deed to your property's got all sorts of errors in it. Covered it many times in the past, but we really don't have any time right now. But I have to do that separately in a different video. We'll have to go through a properties situation one more time. Something for another video. Real estate broker misdeeds. Yeah, you know that a real estate broker has to act as the agent for the buyer. And there's actually a buyer-broker agreement that's been signed and a buy-sell agreement that's been signed. And really, those are the only agreements that have everybody's signature on them. Like it was really a contract. Well, on there, right, there's a number of things that were supposed to have been done by the broker, and they haven't been done. So it's the broker's fault. Again, that's subject for a different time, I guess. The failure of the local government to order the creation of assessor's plats, as is required under the Land Division Act of Act 288 of 1967, and the use of incorrect property records. Right? They're doing all these things, and they're calling it a property tax foreclosure. It's crazy. So there's this one law that's in this act, right? This Land Division Act, MCL 561 or 212, reference to plat description used plats as evidence, and just part of it says that any instrument dated and acknowledged after January 1st, 1968, purporting to convey or mortgage any such lands except by reference to such assessor's plat may not be recorded by the Register of Deeds. And that's exactly what's happening. People take, in Michigan, what they believe to be their warranty deed to the Register of Deeds to have it recorded, and it's not being recorded because it doesn't have any information about an assessor's plat on it. And so they file them. Right? They've been filed. They'll take it, they'll file it, put it in a file cabinet. Yeah, we filed it. But it's not been recorded. So, in other words, the house you think you own was not conveyed to you because your warranty deed does not reference the assessor's plat as part of the legal description, and the Register of Deeds will not record your deed. She may file it, but she won't record it. The proof that your warranty deed has not been recorded is that the state transfer tax stamp on its face has not been canceled as required by state law. The stamp should be canceled much like a postage stamp. See MCL 750-207-528. We'll look at that in just a second. Stamp as evidence of tax payment and other methods of cancellation. But the written procedure is not followed. So in other words, they got a law how to do it, and that ain't what they're doing. So they didn't cancel the stamp, which means you really didn't pay the tax. You may have paid for the tax, but right, they didn't close out the account. They didn't give you a receipt. They didn't hit sale, and instead they go put it in a freaking fund, right? And all that money goes into these different funds that are run through the county as a business. And if you were to look at a comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR report for your county, you'd see they have all this money all over the place, billions of dollars all over the place, millions and billions. And it's all in these funds. It's like, well, what do you need? Why do you need more money if you have all this money in these funds? It's because it's an investment, right? They're not the government. They're acting as a middleman. They don't have a proper oath of office. It's a really fucked up system we live in. So, anyways, I'm writing to the sheriff here, right? Ask the register of deeds to see yours. I'm sure she has a house. Does the description mention assessor's plat? Has the transfer tax stamp been canceled? Or did someone pretend to cancel the stamp by placing initials just to the outside of the stamp area? Further proof of the crime is that the grantee name and legal description from your warranty deed does not match the name of the taxpayer and legal description on your tax bill from the township. In fact, the grantee name does not match your full legal name. Why pay tax on property description you don't own? If Kent County is like Kalkaska County, which is what the video was on, Kalkaska County, Dana's case up there, you'll find that this year's petition for foreclosures, which is the Form 3727, an official local government form, has been altered and signed by a private attorney, not a judge, not a circuit judge. You go look at the form online, it's got a place for a circuit judge to sign it. You look at what they did in Dana's case, it was signed by a private attorney. They just took it right off. They changed the whole thing. I mean, there's nothing on it that's the same except that it's supposed to be the petition for foreclosure. And they have one to use, and they didn't use it. Or if they're going to say they used it, then they counterfeited it. You would also find that the notice of show cause hearing, which is the Form 4264, has been criminally altered, information omitted, and that various legal notice forms required under the redemption and annulment section of the General Property Tax Act were not filed for record. Sheriff, this real property tax scheme is a crime against every homeowner in this county, state, nation. So let me show you a couple of those real quick. Hang on. Okay, so here was a tax bill for Dana, right? It says Blue Lake Township. Pay this tax to Blue Lake Township. Christine Alamos, treasurer. With an address, which is in Mansalona, Michigan. And as Dana said, well, Mansalona is not in Kalkaska County. It's the next county over. I'm still trying to figure out, well, how come the township has an address in a different fucking county? Right? Then it has a property address and so forth, and it's got Smith, Dana R. Well, that's not Dana Reed Smith's name. But they want, Dana Reed Smith to agree to be Smith Dana R. and pay this $113. Right? Then it gives a property address, assessed to. Right? Again, that's not Dana's name. Smith Dana R. Address gives us property number, and then it gives a property address, and right, it gives a legal description. Well, nowhere in this legal description is there any mention of assessor's plat. As we just saw, if it's not in there, well then, you can't record the documents. So let's look at the warranty deed that goes with this. Where here it's Dana R. Smith, which still, it should be Dana Reed Smith, right? But it's not Smith, Dana R. You can't say it's backwards because there's no comma in this name, Dana R. Smith. Where's the comma? There isn't one. So you can't say Smith, comma Dana R is just Dana R. Smith's name backwards. It isn't. It's a different form of something. And, well, here's the transfer tax stamp right here, right, which ends right here. And it's not been canceled. I mean, there's, it's supposed to be somebody's initials, but that ain't making it. Right? There's a procedure that's supposed to have been done. And I thought I had that thing open here, and I have to find it just a second. But okay, and then this legal description, right, ends at this section 34, We look at the bill. Right, there's section 34, Then it has this other part on it. Well, then this is a different legal description. Right? The legal description on Dana's deed doesn't match the legal description he's paying tax on. So why is he paying this tax? Especially when it doesn't have his name on it. And this property number, the whole thing is wrong. Property number is wrong. Wrong. Whole thing is wrong. It's really not a tax bill. It's a simulated legal process pretending to be a tax bill. Right? But if you don't pay those taxes, eventually they're going to send you a delinquent tax notice. Right? Which now is to Dana Smith. It's not Smith Dana R or Dana R Smith. It's Dana Smith. Right? With a number above it. And as we'll find out, this is actually this little square right here. Right? That would be called the interest holder. Right here, Smith Dana R is the owner. Right? But they mailed it to Dana Smith. And it's got that funky stuff at the end. And, hey, don't pay your bills, you get one of these. And then if you don't pay it long enough, they'll send you something like this, which is like it's acting like this was some kind of publication. But this isn't the publication affidavit you would get if something had been published, right? So they really didn't publish anything. They're just acting like they did. And Dana Smith, yep, we're back to that there. And then, right, and then this is the show cause that they sent him, which has got this, 4264 number on it. And if you were to go look at that on the Michigan Department of Treasury website, you say, well, they've altered this area, right? There's stuff in here that has been completely taken out, right? The whole form has been altered. This is, somebody altered an official form of the state. That's called counterfeiting. So I don't know what else to tell them other than it's counterfeiting, but that's what it is. It's counterfeiting. Hang on. All right. We're almost done. So hang tight a little bit more because it's all good. Consumers Energy. Next section. Consumers Energy does not have a franchise with the township. The Michigan Constitution 1963 requires public utilities have a franchise with the township, wherein it says, no organized township shall grant any public utility franchise, which is not subject to revocation at the will of the township, unless the proposition shall first have been approved by a majority of the electors of such township voting thereon at a regular or special election. Right? So they can't grant one that can't be revoked unless it's been voted on. Right? But they can grant one that can be revoked. But either way, they got to grant a freaking franchise. Well, I don't think that Consumers Energy has one. As I showed, if I go to this thing here, which is the ordinance for it, right? The Township of Oakfield, Kent County, Michigan hereby grants right power authority to the Great Lakes Energy Cooperative to do local electric business in the Township of Oakfield, Kent County, Michigan for a period of 15 years. Well, then why do I have a bill from Consumers Energy? Unless they have, a franchise like this, but, this is the only one listed in the ordinance. And I've asked them for any other ones and they've not replied yet, so I'm talking to the sheriff. Okay, and if you look at a building electrical code information, Consumers Energy electric meter is in the customer's service, not utility service portion of the electric distribution system. They're not the public utility providing service. They are instead no more than an uninvited third-party intervener impersonating a public utility. The township has failed to respond to my questions on if Consumers Energy has a valid franchise to do business in the township. The Township of Oakfield Ordinance Code, Section 18, states that the Great Lakes Energy Cooperative has a franchise to do a local electric business in the township. I do not have a contract with Great Lakes Energy Cooperative, and I get a bill from an alleged public utility that does not appear to have authority in my township. All public utilities such as cable, TV, phones, electric, must have a franchise with the township. Yet the Township of Oakfield has failed to identify which companies are franchised. Or anybody that's a common carrier, got to be franchised. If they're acting as a common carrier, they have to be franchised in the township. Registered and qualified elector of the township. The laws of Michigan make it very clear in MCL 168-342, which is the election laws of Michigan. It says the township office eligibility for membership on board of review. And there it says a person is not eligible to a township office unless the person is registered and qualified elector of the township in which election is sought by the filing deadline. Right? I am disenfranchised of my elector status and eligibility to hold a township office because the township board of the Township of Oakfield usurpers violated the Constitution of the United States. Right? So they haven't put me in there. So whatever needs to be done can be done. I mean, it says right there that if you want to be elected to the office, you got to be in the township first. So I want the sheriff to get me in the township. Michigan congressional delegation offended the Constitution of the United States. Peter James Meyer, he's the 3rd congressional district, right? That's where I'm at. And the rest of the alleged United States congressional delegations from Michigan omitted executing the mandatory oath to satisfy the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States. That's at 1 Stat 23 we looked at some time ago. They even went as far as to use a nickname on the unconstitutional oath instead of their legal identification. The 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States defines who must execute an oath to satisfy the article. Right? So this is the 3rd section of the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States, wherein it says the senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office of public trust under the United States. So, what can you say about that? Well, that pretty much covers everybody. Now, it doesn't cover military. Military used to be covered in this, right? But in 1948 or 1949, when they created the DOD, they created another class of office called the military office, right? Which isn't in the executive branch. It's in the military branch, right? They created a 4th branch of government. In fact, the DOD calls itself the 4th branch. Is that what it calls? What does the newspaper call themselves over in England? They had a name for the news, right? It was like the 4th branch of government. It's 4th something, and that's whatever that term was, that's the same one the DOD calls itself. So anyways, all these people, they didn't take the oath that's in 1 Stat 23/4 USC 101. Right? Sheriff, the senators and representatives did not execute the oath as required of them. Instead of executing this oath, they executed the oath with an unconstitutional religious test. So help me God. They filed the same oath that was given after the Civil War to former Confederate soldiers and sympathizers so they could reclaim a civil status in the United States. It was an oath given to the enemy, for God's sakes. The oath is now codified in 5 U.S.C. 3331. These persons are constitutionally unqualified for the office they now usurp. All right, hang on. So you can easily go to YouTube and find, it was January 3rd, 2021, 117th Congress, Nancy Pelosi giving them the oath of office, Nancy taking the oath of office, senators taking the oath of office. And it's this oath of office they take right here, which is in, again, this is Title V, right? Got the same little bird up there. Title V, government organization and employees. And, IAB, so you're supposed to put your full legal name. And if, I've shown in many videos in the past where they use a middle initial name, or they use a nickname, or they use some other form of their name in that box. But then at the end, it says, so help me God. Well, that just made it unconstitutional because the 6th article says no religious test shall ever be required. Therefore, can't say, so help me God. Now, you can say it, but you can't make it part of the oath. You can't make it mandatory. See, that'd be within them quotes there. The oath ends here. The oath started here. You don't say that oath, you didn't, take this oath. But then it goes on to say this section does not affect other oaths required by law. Well, hell, what could they be talking about? Well, of course, they're talking about 1 Stat 23. All right, this one never went away. This oath is still there. If you go look at Title II, where it talks a bit, that's the Congress and, the things they're supposed to do, Title II, United States Code, it'll say at the bottom, that it references this frickin' oath here that's supposed to be taken. June 1st, 1789. And they do not do it. All right. Hang on. Okay. Hey, we're almost done. And so, finally, right, the United States has been under military rule since the Civil War. President Lincoln declared martial law over the entire United States in 1861, and it continues till today. The 2nd article of General Orders 100, that'd be your Lieber Code, mandates the conditions that end martial law, and these conditions have never been met. Evidence of military occupation is the gold fringe flag of the United States. Display of this flag is governed by Army Regulation 840-10, Chapter 2, Section 3, in which it is stated that the gold fringe flag is to be displayed in military courtrooms and other military offices. Any courtroom displaying a gold fringe flag is a military courtroom, not civilian, and all courtrooms display one. ALL, that's saying a lot, but by and large, you go into a courtroom, it's got a gold fringe flag. Right? You go to a county meeting, it's got a gold fringe flag. Governor's got a gold fringe flag. Township commissioner's got a gold, or township supervisor's got a gold fringe flag. The church has got a gold fringe flag. Right? Now, the church has got gold fringe flags because in 1917, they created civil bodies that were given a commission by the military. And so for the Protestants, it was like the YMCA and the YWCA. And for the Catholics, it was the National Catholic War Council or something like that. The Jews had one. I mean, they gave each of these religious groups through a civil nonprofit that they created, right? So like today, it's the USCCB. That's what's left of it, but that isn't what it was called in the day. But whatever it is they created civilly was then given a commission by the War Department of War. So it's not a civil commission; it's a military commission, and they're still there, right? So they're all tied into the government somehow, although they don't know this anymore, or they don't want to know, or whatever the reason is. But you got a gold fringe flag, brother. You're part of the military, whether you like it or not. And if you liked it, you could use that power, right? Because it does mean something. But nobody has enough gonads to, take the next step. But we'll get past that. Okay, so any courtroom displaying a gold fringe flag is a military courtroom. They're in the Supreme Court. They got 2 big-ass gold fringe flags on there. They're like the biggest flags I've seen. It's like, well, duh. Hey, that's a military court. That's not the Supreme Court of the United States. It's in the Constitution. That's a military court. Right? That may be their building, but it's been taken over by the military. The constitutional civil government has been vacated since 1861. Anyways, because we the people cannot register in the original jurisdiction of the United States, which is the townships, we are not seen as being in the United States, and the Army is unable to come to our aid. This shit needs to end. That's what this means. The United States is under martial law, which means it's under the rule of the military. But because we're not registered in the township, the military doesn't see us, right? But if we could be registered in the military or in the township, the military would see us, and they wouldn't allow this shit to happen because they would protect us then. In closing, the sheriff has a court and is the keeper of the king's peace. So you do not need anyone's permission to arrest enemies of the United States or to coerce belligerent attorneys at law to do the right things. The township is intended to be the elemental republic, where inhabitants interface with the government to include filing sworn statements in support of redress of grievances. I am in expectation of your providing our relief on behalf of all inhabitants. I demand to be recognized as a registered and qualified elector of the township I inhabit. I await your acknowledgement of my claim, and I pray for your salvation. Because this really isn't something that a sheriff wants to say no to. I mean, that's like you're violating everything there is about being a sheriff, man. It's an ancient freaking office. It's over 1,100 years old. You can't say no. You can't say no to the sovereign. That's what I'm trying to point out. The sovereign's the Constitution, brother. You can't say no. I'm not allowing that to happen. So I'm going to put it in the air, right? I mean, everyone can see. So there we are. Will the sheriff serve the sovereign? We'll find out soon enough. So I'm going to put this on Gab now, and then if you ever go to Gab, would you pass it around a bit? Sign up on as a follow RobbRyder, I guess is what you would say. And well, let's leave it there. As soon as I hear something from the sheriff or I know something, I'll do another video, or come this weekend if I haven't heard something, I'll send a second notice. See what that does. Alrighty, that's it for today. Let me make sure that's it for today. Let me go look for one more thing. Hang on. Yeah, I had pulled these up. I might as well show them real quick. Right, this is a utility service. Right, so all the black, that's the utility, and then it comes to customer owned. So this is all customer wires, customer's box, and then a utility meter. Well, what the hell is the utilities meter doing in my service? They have their own service over here, right? If you want to charge me, put it on your side, not on mine. Well, that's because, the way it looks, the people that put this meter here aren't the ones that are delivering them the electricity. And my understanding is, we should have electricity for free. Now, we might have to pay for the distribution because you got to put them poles up and transformers. I mean, there's some cost to that stuff, right? But that's what the township did with the one they gave the franchise to, right? But that's to get it to my house that we own. The public owns the power stations. Why am I paying for electricity? And I know a lot of people agree with me that that's wrong. And as a matter of fact, the address that they have for your site has a lot number and subdivision and lot number as part of it. And I think that has something to do with the address we're supposed to be using on our identification, right? That's the land jurisdiction. They took the address of the land jurisdiction, and instead they gave us a jurisdiction for a fictitious jurisdiction. All right, so that was that. And real quick right here, here's the law, right? I'm not lying. This is right out of the Michigan Code. A person is not eligible to a township office unless the person is a registered and qualified elector of the township for which the election is sought by the filing deadline. Okay, registered and qualified elector. How do I do that? You go down there and talk to them. They know what a voter is, but they won't admit to an elector. And this is the Lieber Code, right? This is that General Orders number 100, the Lieber Code, Instructions for the Government of the Armies of the United States in the Field, where it says in Article 2, martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation, except by special proclamation ordered by the Commander-in-Chief or by special mention in the Treaty of Peace concluding the war, when the occupation of place or territory continues beyond the conclusion as peace is one of the conditions of the same. Right? Well, the occupation of place or territory continued Because there's gold fringe flags in all courtrooms, right? If that's supposed to be a state court, why is there a United States flag in there with gold fringe on it? An Army flag, a frickin' war flag. I had just a few more things. So the reason this is such a big deal with these townships, now look at this, right? Look at this map. Every place in red, this is 2016, right, voted for Trump. These are all townships, right? Each of these little squares is a township. Well, each of those, if they were being run as a proper local government, all the people in that township wouldn't be paying property taxes, right? Because you wouldn't be paying real property taxes. You wouldn't be going to courts for foreclosures, because in a foreclosure, I don't have time to explain it right now. I have to do this in another video, but I just tell you about it, right? If you look at your mortgage or deed of trust, depending on what state you're in, and you look at the name of the lender, and you look at the name of the borrower, right? The lender's name, as it's written on that form, is not the same as any business that's registered in your state to do business in the mortgage business. Right now, they may use a few words that are the same, but it's not the same. I mean, jot and tittle. These are supposed to be legal names of things that you can sue and be sued with. You can't contract in a fictitious name unless you register your real name someplace. Right? But, still, it has to be registered with the state, and it isn't there. And then if you look at the borrower, they don't use your full legal name. I think Georgia may be different. Georgia, there's something a little bit different. They did something else wrong or, omitted so that it would have the same effect. But it seemed to me they actually use people's full legal names in Georgia. But in Michigan, they don't. Right? Like we see, Dana R. Smith, not Dana Reed Smith. Right? Or they'll put Dana R. Smith, comma, a single man. Right? And they'll create a thing out of something that looks like your name, but it's nothing because it wasn't registered as a business. So it really can't do any business. It's just, a bunch of letters on paper. You say, well, how can they do that in a court case? Well, they're not doing it in a court case. The judge doesn't have an oath of office. They're just pretending. It's all simulated legal process. Right? And every attorney that, is involved in this stuff is involved in it. Right? He may be your brother. I don't care. He's did it. Right? They're the ones doing it. So that shit has to come to an end. And one way to get it done is for the sheriff to put us, to make so the township, coerce the township, and to run the township as a township. And more on that later. So, okay. Thanks for listening. And I don't think I had anything else, right? Nope. Will the sheriff serve the sovereign? We're about to find out. Have a good night.